Live from Morcus Chocolates in Palatine, part of our AM560 Signature Bank Business Tour. And it's a banner day for us because we get to get out of the studio and come to a nice establishment and drink wine and have chocolate. And it's a banner day for Joe Bast, too, who's the president of the Heartland Institute, which is a longtime Chicago-based think tank with a national, international perspective on policy issues and free market solutions to policy challenges. Now moved out to Arlington Heights, actually, in terms of their headquarters.
Yeah, they're literally right around the corner.
And yeah,
You should stop by.
Yeah, well, maybe I will.
Right.
Maybe if he has chocolate, I would. But here's the thing. He has been fighting the battle on energy independence and fighting the battle against junk science for many, many moons. So yesterday was an important victory for free market types like Joe Bast with the executive order President Trump signed on confiscatory environmental regulations designed to put industries out of business with one fell stroke of the pen. And in response to the hysterics that got beaten out of the brush with Trump's executive order, I got to read these tweets again. I read them earlier when we talked to Steve Moore, but I mean, just give you a sense of the people that think windmills constitute new technology and think that the debate is over when it comes to the science about the Earth's climate as well as about energy and energy independence and the production of energy. Michael Moore, yesterday, tweeting, historians in the near future will mark today, March 28, 2017, as the day the extinction of human life on Earth began. Thanks to Donald Trump.
Such hyperbole. Whew.
Van Jones, another measured response. Donald Trump just signed a death warrant for planet Earth.
Dun, dun, dun.
I mean, seriously. So to separate some of the overheated rhetoric, you want to talk about pollutants, from the actual science and the actual economics, we're pleased to be joined by Joe Bast, the president of the Heartland Institute. Joe, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Hey, good morning. Thanks a lot for having me on.
Good morning. So the importance of the executive order President Trump issued yesterday in this larger debate, so both in terms of kind of political culture and understanding and discourse on these topics, as well as the actual economic impact.
Well, absolutely huge. It's just tremendous. I've been going around kind of walking on clouds ever since the press conference yesterday. This is a president who really gets it. I think he understands climate science way better than Barack Obama ever did, better than Van Jones and Samantha Bee and all of these people who suddenly think that Trump is an idiot on global warming because they've suddenly become scientists themselves. This order rolls back the Clean Power Plan. That's absolutely huge. It rolls back, I think, a total of 7 different executive orders that Obama issued on global warming. It begins the process of repealing unnecessary regulation on all fossil fuels, not just coal. And it refocuses EPA, as the president said during the signing ceremony, back on what it's supposed to be doing, which is protecting air and water quality. I think EPA stopped doing that about 20 years ago when that job was pretty much finished, and it's drifted off into esoteric areas like global warming. So this is just good news all around. It's good for science, it's good economics, it's good for the American worker, and it's good for American competitiveness going forward.
And they also scrapped regulations that would make it tougher to mine coal on federal lands. Is there any place in particular where they want to begin coal mining?
I don't know the answer to that, but you're right. It lifts the restriction that Obama placed just last year on new coal mining on federal lands. And that's big, too. It's not just coal, natural gas, and oil as well. The Obama administration tried to lock up as much property as it could. Just millions and millions of acres of land now is off limits to oil, gas, and coal, even exploration, much less actual development.
And if you think about it locally, I mean, just thinking about the state of Illinois and our coal deposits in southern Illinois, places like Franklin County, in rural areas or small town areas where people are over-reliant on government jobs, they want the prisons to come to their communities because they're so starved for economic opportunity. This unleashes a real economic boon to people in communities and regions like Southern Illinois.
That's absolutely right, Dan. It's a big benefit for Illinois. And mining is a big deal in Southern Illinois. Those of us up in the Northeast, we don't see that and don't feel it. But those were, tens of thousands of good jobs down there, and all of the related economic growth, the railroads and the processing and low-cost energy that makes other types of manufacturing possible, all of that is absolutely essential. So the problem we have in Illinois, of course, is our utilities, and Exelon in particular, which I think stopped caring about consumers probably 20 years ago and just wants to line its pockets.
And has been allowed to
subsidize renewables, and they really don't care what the rates are. They're not going to make an effort to get coal back into their portfolio. So unless the Illinois citizens get really upset and make a lot of noise about that, I don't think we are going to benefit as much as other states are from what President Trump is doing.
Well, and here's the thing, so the argument was advanced by President Obama when it comes to energy independence. I'm for all of the above. I'm for, the use of all of our resources to become energy independent, but he really wasn't. He was interested in picking winners and losers. He was interested in subsidizing very high-cost, low-output energy sources like windmills and switchgrass and the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not to say that people who are supportive of the rollback of these regulations, this is the left's argument too, in the pocket of big oil, in the pocket of big natural gas companies. What we're saying is, correct me if I'm wrong, is look, a competitive marketplace for energy production, and let whoever provides the most energy at the cheapest cost while protecting the environment. We're not suggesting anybody rape and pillage the environment. Those should be that should be the company or the sector that wins, and let everybody compete.
That's exactly right. That's right. Now, of course, the left tried to put a thumb on the scale by saying, well, you got to take into account carbon dioxide and global warming. So even though fossil fuels are cheaper and more reliable and now can be used with virtually zero emissions, they still want to penalize them and regulate them out of existence because they contribute to global warming. And I think what we know now over the last 4 or 5 years is all of that was, what they call a false flag campaign. I mean, this was propaganda at its worst type. The scientific community does not agree that there's a big human impact or that it's going to cause a catastrophe. You cannot point to a survey or a review of literature that comes to that conclusion. The scientific community is deeply divided. The best that we can say is there is a human impact. It's probably very small. It's probably impossible to predict what the climate's going to look like in 50 years, much less 100 or 200 years from now. So what we really need to do, and what I think Donald Trump understands perfectly, is we need to step away from this, stop funding political science, all of this advocacy stuff that comes out of EPA and the United Nations, and say, whoa, wait a minute, we're way ahead of the science here. Let's back away from it. Let's stop wasting hundreds of billions of dollars, and let's focus on making America great again. Jobs,
well, and to your point about the science, it turns out in terms of say we're probably not very good at predicting what the climate is going to be in 20 or 30 or 50 years. Well, that's been our experience with all of those organizations, NOAA and others, making predictions about what the climate would be 20 and 30 years ago today. They were wrong.
Exactly. When you make predictions, eventually people can call you on that. And they have now been making predictions for over 20 years on what the climate's going to look like. And their predictions and their models are way off, way off. They're more than twice what the actual warming has been. There's virtually no warming for the last 18 years. There's a great literature and big debates about that. But the bottom line is temperatures have not risen nearly as much as what the alarmists in this debate have claimed. And going forward, it's almost certain to be less than the 4, 5, 6 degrees that these guys have been talking about. If it's only 1 degree or 2 degrees 100 years from now, you will not notice that. Absolutely, you won't notice it. The science has gone decisively in our direction on this. There is no justification for imposing bans or taxes or restrictions on the use of fossil fuels. We ought to use it. It's our comparative advantage. We have more fossil fuels than any other country in the world. We're going to be a net energy exporter. It's going to create millions of jobs, billions of dollars in wealth. I mean, it is really a beautiful day in America when we finally get the jackboot government off of the neck of our energy sector. This is huge. This is
so with this, yeah.
Every day going forward.
So with this war on coal essentially over, I mean, what does it mean for those in the future of renewable energy jobs?
I think a lot of them are going to have to find a real job going forward. Wind, solar have a place in a portfolio of energy supplies, but it's a very small place. Obviously, solar doesn't work at night. Wind doesn't work when the wind isn't blowing. We don't have suitable technology for storing the energy, so we can't make energy during the day and then use it at night. Battery technology just isn't there. And even recent advances in battery technology bring us nowhere close to where we need to be to justify ramping up renewable energy. So when the subsidies end, and I think that's got to be one of the next steps of this administration, we got to stop the federal subsidies to renewables. You're going to see a lot of this stuff just shut down. There's evidence internationally that's already happening.
And to be clear, I mean, just for intellectual consistency purposes, you're not for subsidizing any sector in terms
Absolutely
of energy
right.
production, correct?
No subsidies for anybody. Nuclear, coal, wind power, nobody should be subsidized.
There you go. All right, he is Joe Bast, president of the Heartland Institute, does great work across a range of policy issues, including energy independence. Joe, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate it, too. We don't have chocolate here, but we do have lots of books. So if you guys want to come by to our office here in Arlington, just check us out. We would welcome your...
If you had more chocolate, people would come by to read the books. Thanks for joining us, Joe. Appreciate it.
All right.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.